So there I was, a baby Paraspectre, lost and confused on what I should do with my channel next. I completed discussing every James Bond game in existence, at least for now. I started Metroid, I played the Pokemon trading card games, so what was I to do next? I sat in this very seat at my computer, gazing into the empty, lifeless stare of my logo, and it hit me. I'm Paraspectre, half Spectre for James Bond and half Parasect for Pokemon. The obvious next step should be a Pokemon retrospective. So I did some research. What if I did roughly the same kind of format as Bond and went episode by episode discussing every Pokemon game in existence too? So after compiling a list, I discovered that at the time of me writing this, I tallied up 66 Pokemon games. Good lordy lord, there is no way I'll be able to cover an epic project of that magnitude. So I'd like to welcome you all to part 1 of a 66 plus part series discussing every single Pokemon game. But what will separate my videos from all of the many, much more thorough and well-constructed looks at the main Pokemon games on YouTube? Well, I'm going to treat each one as its own video and in the exact North American release order. Nothing against Japan by any means, Pokemon did originate there and all, but I don't feel like I'm the right person to discuss those, being a non-Japanese speaking New Yorker and all. I have no history with any of the Japanese versions of these games. I will certainly mention the historical significances when needed though. The Pokemon Gold and Silver episode, for example, will be given the same treatment as something like Pokemon Rumble U. The purpose of this project is for you to go in episode order while pretending to put yourself into the year each game came out. Whether you do that or not as the viewer is of course up to you. Also, the majority of these games will be me going in completely blind. Currently, I have only ever played 22 out of the 66 games, and as you math experts have already figured out in your head, that is 1/3 of the series. I don't intend for many of these videos to be overly long, as there's so much to get through, but I don't want to simply brush over them either. This episode should be by far the longest in the series, as I've rambled on long enough in this intro, and there's much more background to cover than in future installments. I want to try and treat episode 2 as a sequel to 1, episode 3 as a sequel to 2, and so on. Anyway, grab your Paraspectacles because we are about to embark on an absolutely epic journey that has a 72% chance of never reaching its completion. Just kidding. But maybe. The very first Pokemon games, the series at its infancy. There is so much known about Pokemon Red and Blue at this point by hardcore fans or even casual players that none of this will be new to most of you. But let me attempt to take you back to the late 90s. Sit back, relax, and pour some Ecto Cooler in your Power Rangers cup, because Buffy the Vampire Slayer is coming on and the New Radicals will be the biggest band of all time for sure. Pretend you have no knowledge of what this game is, how big the franchise actually gets, and that you won't see the Pikachu balloon at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and hopefully, you'll enjoy my series. The origin of Pokemon goes all the way back to the childhood of future game designer Satoshi Tajiri. He was fascinated by the idea of going outside to collect bugs in jars and eventually wanted to implement this into a video game medium. He envisioned a cable connecting two Game Boys allowing children to trade creatures over to one another, thus the idea for Pocket Monsters was born. As Pocket Monsters is too lengthy and not shorthand enough for the hip 90s North American children, a hybrid of the two words was created, giving us the now household term of Pokemon. It is known that a team of less than 10 people designed the first original 151 Pokemon, with Atsuko Nishida being the designer for the game's mascot, Pikachu, as well as the first 3 starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. But oh, I'll get into those soon. The idea was to have the game be released as 2, sometimes even 3 different versions in which you are encouraged to make friends and find others with the counterpart game, as certain Pokemon can exclusively be found on the version you choose to play. The Pocket Monsters game was originally a Japan-only release, and it took quite a while to even reach North America. Pocket Monsters Red and Pocket Monsters Green was released in Japan on February 27, 1996 for the Game Boy, a system that was more than 7 years old at that point. In fact, the 5th generation of consoles was soon to be underway, as the Nintendo 64 would be released in Japan just 4 months later. Pocket Monsters Red and Green was a pretty big hit, and the localization for North America was underway. Pocket Monsters Red featured the fully evolved Firestarter on the cover, Charizard. Pocket Monsters Green featured the grass version, Venusaur, although these names are obviously the Englishized versions. All the original 151 Pocket Monsters had to be renamed to accompany the English language, with some pop culture references like Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee being integrated into Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee respectively. Some of them were puns, such as Primeape or Kangaskhan. I always thought Primeape was a clever name. It would be over half a year later when the 3rd variant of Pocket Monsters was released in Japan, Pocket Monsters Blue, featuring the fully evolved water starter, Blastoise. After a few setbacks, patenting, research, development, marketing, localization, and all the good stuff that goes into game development, North America finally saw the release of Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue on September 28, 1998, and the series was officially underway in the West. Australia and Europe saw these games shortly after. Supposedly, Red and Blue were selected instead of Green in North America, as Red and Blue are colors of the American flag. Interesting factoid. Per usual for my retrospectives, let's check out the box for both Red and Blue, and like always, pretend it's our first time seeing them. Because these are small Game Boy boxes, the art size is a bit smaller than a console game. Pokemon Red version is extremely simple, a shadowed red background with a giant orange dragon with blue wings and fire at the end of its tail. We know this now, of course, as a Charizard, but based on the box alone, you could think this is a fantasy game. At the top is the Pokemon logo with the phrase, "Gotta catch 'em all" underneath. At the bottom, it does say Red version and link to Blue version to catch all 150 monsters. That alone must have been intriguing because you're supposed to somehow link this game to another game. Regarding the Blue version, everything is exactly the same except for the obvious blue background instead of red, and replacing the dragon is a giant turtle with what looks like a cannon coming out of its shell. This is known as a Blastoise. So if you were to see the two of these on a store shelf, you would assume you'd have to make a choice here. Pick the fire dragon or the cannon turtle, and find someone else who picked the other to link them up. The back of the box states, "You've finally been granted your Pokemon Trainer's license. Now it's time to head out to become the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. It's going to take all you've got to collect 150 Pokemon in this enormous world. Catch and train monsters like the shockingly cute Pikachu." There it is. Pikachu is now one of the most recognizable video game characters of all time, and it's only featured in a blurb on the back with a tiny picture in the corner. Face off against Blastoise's torrential water cannons. So is Blastoise an end boss? And it seems like picking the red or blue version now means you're deciding between fire or water. Stand strong when facing Pidgeot's stormy gust. Another monster, I assume. Trade with friends and watch your Pokemon evolve. Important, no single Pokemon can win it all. So the game cannot be won with a single Pokemon. Got it. Can you develop the ultimate Pokemon strategy to defeat the 8 gym leaders? Why gym is in all caps is beyond me. And become the greatest Pokemon master of all time? So, if I understand this right, you pick fire or water, you now have your license to be a trainer, collect monsters, fight gym leaders, and become a Pokemon master. There exists at least a Pikachu, a Blastoise, and a Pidgeot. There are also 4 small pictures, a boy in jeans with a red jacket and hat holding an orb, a small yellow rodent creature, a red and white ball, and a large round creature who looks like it's asleep. The 2 gameplay pictures are a boy on a bike in front of a gym, as it says, "Gameplay on the Game Boy Compact Video Game System." Is that what the official name of the Game Boy is? The other picture shows 2 creatures facing each other with the word Meowth next to a cat-like creature and another rodent named Sandshrew, and Sandshrew is using Poison Sting. It says, "Gameplay on the Super NES using the Super Game Boy Adapter," both sold separately. Lastly, the blurbs. Collect up to 139 different Pokemon playing the blue or red version, depending on which box you're looking at, using the Game Boy Link cable, sold separately. Trade with a friend who has the opposite version to capture all 150. So basically, I would need this game, a link cable, a Game Boy, and a friend in order to actually complete it. You'll need to use both versions, red and blue, to collect all of the Pokemon. I'll need to, okay. Test your training skills by battling against a friend using the Game Boy Link cable, sold separately. Yeah, you just told me that an inch above this. A link cable's essential, I got it. Save your Pokemon collection and game progress on the Game Pack memory. Requires basic reading skills to fully enjoy the entertaining story. Now, there's some advice you never really see. That tells me there is a lot of text in this game. So, there we go. For the sake of the review, I'm going to be checking out the blue version. Contrary to what the box would have you believe, that does not mean you are required to use Blastoise or fight against it. Blastoise is simply the mascot for the box itself. It's possible to play through the entirety of the blue version and never once see a Blastoise, and the same goes for Charizard on red. The story goes that you, a 10-year-old boy in Pallet Town, are now able to go on a countrywide trek, only accompanied by Pokemon you are given or catch in the wild, in order to fight other trainers' Pokemon to gain experience points and eventually earn the title of Pokemon Master, defeating the best of the best in the region. Known in the story canon as Red, although you can rename him to anything you'd like, Red starts out in the Kanto region, which is based on the real Kanto region in Japan. Your mom tells you that all boys leave home someday, so today is like your bar mitzvah. You are now a real adult and have her blessing to go about your life engaging in Pokemon battles with strangers in dark caves and power plants. Once you step into the grass, you are immediately stopped by a kindly old Professor Oak who tells you that you are to be given a Pokemon friend to fight alongside you for protection, so you aren't robbed or worse by strange men in dark caves. It is at this moment that if you are playing a Pokemon game for the first time ever, you have a life-altering decision to make. No pressure. You must now pick your Pokemon starter out of 3 options for the remainder of the game, each encompassing a different Pokemon type, which is an enormous factor into the game's mechanics. First is Bulbasaur, a grass poison type who is a short, stumpy, green dinosaur-looking creature with a large plant bulb on its back. Grass types will be strong against water, rock, and ground types, but weak to fire, poison, flying, ice, and bug. The second option, Charmander, is the orange lizard-like bipedal fire type with a constant flame on the tip of its tail. Fire is strong against grass, ice, and bug types, and weak to water, ground, and rock. Thirdly is your final option, the blue water turtle, Squirtle. Water is strong against fire, ground, and rock, and weak to electric and grass. A lot of these type strengths and weaknesses are a bit logically science-based, as foliage can be burned by fire, fire melts ice, water can be a conductor of electricity, etc. Essentially, the starters act as a game-within-a-game version of rock, paper, scissors, in that Bulbasaur beats Squirtle, Squirtle beats Charmander, Charmander beats Bulbasaur. In theory, your starter will always be strong to one, weak to another. The balance of these first games, however, that's another story. Alongside Red is Professor Oak's grandson, Blue, who is also being given his first Pokemon. No matter which starter you pick, Blue will always take the one that is meant to defeat it for an added challenge. And then you enter your first ever Pokemon battle. Battles in Pokemon are typically turn-based, along the lines of role-playing games like Final Fantasy. A Pokemon battle has both Pokemon facing each other, with a trainer standing behind them or off to the side or whatever, who is the one to shout the attack name to the Pokemon, commanding them on how to attack the opponent's Pokemon. Apparently all Pokemon are fluent in whatever language you also speak. In game mechanics terms, you are shown a menu with 4 options: Fight, Pokemon, Item, and Run. Fight obviously means you are about to tell your Pokemon which of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 attacks it has learned to use. The Pokemon option means you wish to take your active Pokemon out of battle and want to bring in another. Item means exactly how it sounds. Your turn is used in order to utilize potions to heal your Pokemon, use a stat booster, or whatever. And Run is also pretty self-explanatory, although you cannot run from trainer battles. Each Pokemon has a list of stats, another RPG staple: attack, defense, speed, and special. The higher the numbers of these stats are, the stronger your Pokemon will be in battle. They get raised through gaining levels from experience points, which are obtained by winning battles. Attack is based on actual physical attacks like tackle, rock throw, or slash. These types are normal, fighting, flying, poison, ground, rock, bug, and ghost. Defense is lessening the damage taken from opposing Pokemon's physical attacks. Speed dictates which Pokemon attacks first, with the higher number being the faster one. And special is both the attack and defense version of elemental type attacks, such as Fire Blast, Water Gun, or Thunder Shock. These types are Fire, Water, Grass, Electric, Psychic, Ice, and Dragon. And basically the game has a very mathematically complex algorithm to determine exactly how many hit points are to be subtracted after the attack takes place. The higher the Pokemon's stat numbers are, the more HP is subtracted from the opponent. Other factors come into play too, such as the finite power of the attack being used, such as Thunderbolt being a stronger attack than Thunder Shock. There are also somewhat randomized critical hits, which will do double the damage, status effects like sleep, paralysis, and poison, and knowing your type weaknesses. There is actually a lot that goes into it, but once you familiarize yourself with how these game mechanics work, it's pretty simple, and the game does all the work in figuring out how many hit points get taken away. A Pokemon battle keeps going until either one Pokemon runs out of hit points and faints, as Pokemon do not die in battle, or, in terms of wild Pokemon, you or it chooses to flee. After defeating Blue's starting Pokemon in battle, you are then tasked with advancing to Route 1, the connecting pedestrian road to Viridian City, where you are to pick up a package and deliver it back to Professor Oak. In this package are 2 Pokédexes, the game's encyclopedia-type handheld computer that keeps track of which of the 151 Pokemon you have caught at some point in your gameplay, although the game only tells you there are 150. As long as you have been the sole owner of the Pokemon species at some point, information will be displayed for that Pokemon in your Pokédex. And again, as anybody even the least familiar with Pokemon in a pop culture sense, you gotta catch 'em all, the marketing ploy that seems to have died down in the recent years. Gotta catch 'em all was the series catchphrase in the 90s, indicating that one of your optional game goals was to fill up your Pokédex, having information entered for all 151. You don't have to do this. In fact, you can go through the entire game using one single Pokemon in battle if you want to, even though the back said you cannot. And this really is the main appeal to the game. No 2 playthroughs will ever be the same, ever. The replay factor is through the roof with this game, which is one reason why it became such a successful franchise. Want to play through the game using just Fearow, Electrode, and Vaporeon? Then find those 3 in the world and do it. Want to play through catching every single different one you can find and swapping out the ones you like more? Then do it. Want to do it with only Charmander? Go for it. The sheer amount of possibilities of which Pokemon to use and which attacks to have are absolutely astounding, as long as you can find them or trade for them with friends. Just because you're given a starter at the beginning doesn't mean you must continue to use them. It's all customizable and up to you. You are allowed to carry up to 6 Pokemon at one time, and any other ones you catch with a full team are digitally transferred to a computer in a sort of pre-Wi-Fi manner. Pokemon are caught with the use of Pokeballs, small red and white balls that open from a button in the middle. A Pokemon in a Pokeball sort of becomes digital matter and is then considered owned by you, as the 1,000-pound Snorlax fits in the exact same Pokeball as a 4-pound Pidgey. Ideally, the less HP a Pokemon has, the higher the odds of it being caught, which is lasting a few shakes and seconds of it inside the ball. Once the ball goes still, it is considered caught, and your Pokemon will now obey your every command, devoting its life to you as its master. It's kinda creepy in that regard. Once you are given a Pokédex, you can now fight trainers and purchase Pokeballs in order to catch more Pokemon to use in battle. Defeating trainers also grants you money to spend on balls, healing items, or other attacks to teach, known as technical machines, or TMs. It's just sort of understood that every Pokemon battle is essentially gambling, as money will always be awarded. On Route 1, you will find your first wild Pokemon encounters by walking through tall grass. You cannot see wild Pokemon on your screen, as the screen will flash and go to the battle screen when you find one, also similar to Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior. Route 1 has Pidgey, the normal flying type tiny bird Pokemon, or Rattata, the normal type purple rat Pokemon with large teeth. You can keep fighting them over and over for experience points in order to level up your starter. You can choose to catch one or both. You can choose to avoid them altogether. You can choose to catch 5 Pidgeys if you want. It's really all up to you here, as will be with the remainder of the game's routes. But Route 1 only has Pidgey and Rattata as encounters. Once you reach Viridian City, you are welcome to wander around and talk to the residents, sometimes in their own homes by simply walking in, or you can purchase Pokeballs or other items at the shop, or, of course, there is the Pokemon Center. The Pokemon Center is the veterinarian that is in just about every town or city, although it's every pet owner's dream because the Pokemon Center offers free healing, always and at any time of day. You just walk in, hand over your Pokeballs to the nurse, and she slaps them into a machine, and bam, all healed. The other main goal of this game is to do the Gym Challenge, in which you must travel the Kanto region and find the cities with the 8 Pokemon gyms and defeat the gym leader, a named character who uses typed-themed Pokemon. The Viridian City Gym is inaccessible for now, so it's time to continue on. Going west leads you to Route 22, where you can find some different Pokemon. Rattata is also here, but there is a different kind of bird Pokemon, a Spearow, which is more scrappy looking than a Pidgey, but also a normal and flying type. There are also the male or female versions of a Nidoran, the poison-type rabbit-like Pokemon who are able to inflict the poison status condition with certain poison-type attacks, resulting in extra HP being diminished each turn. To the north of Viridian City is Route 2, as well as the Viridian Forest. Route 2 introduces a couple small bug Pokemon, Caterpie, the pure bug-type green caterpillar Pokemon, and Weedle, the bug poison type with a spike on its head. Viridian Forest, however, is a little different, as you will be spotted by trainers here if you enter their line of sight and must engage in a Pokemon battle until one trainer has all of theirs faint. As well as Caterpie and Weedle, this is where you will probably learn about Pokemon evolution. Caterpie, when reaching level 7, evolves into Metapod, the green cocoon Pokemon known for just using Harden, an attack that raises its defense, eventually becoming the butterfly Pokemon Butterfree at level 10. These are the fastest evolving Pokemon in the game, so it's perfect for learning the evolution mechanic this early. Metapod is also found here in the wild, but Butterfree is not. Weedle has the exact same evolution cycle, just with the added poison type. Weedle becomes Kakuna, the yellow cocoon eventually becoming Beedrill, the bee Pokemon with spikes for limbs. But on the very rare encounter, you can also find what will become the face of the franchise, even still to this day, a Pikachu. Everybody now knows Pikachu for what it is, the electric mouse with the lightning bolt tail and red cheeks. But apparently Pikachu was originally going to look like a Japanese dessert, then a squirrel, until finally being changed to the mouse that we are all familiar with. This is the only place in the game to find a Pikachu until way later at the power plant, so it's kind of funny that you could easily traverse the entire forest without ever finding out or knowing one is there, based on its low 5% encounter rate. The face of the franchise, and it's not featured on the front of the box, and is simply a rare encounter in the early game forest alongside some bugs and cocoons. It's like they didn't know how big Pikachu would become. It kind of gives the game its humbling charm. After the forest is Pewter City, where you can actually engage in your very first gym leader battle against the rock trainer, Brock. Brock uses 2 rock ground-type Pokemon, a Geodude, a spherical rock creature with a face and 2 arms that is able to hover for some reason, and the giant rock snake, Onix. Here is where your original starter decision can run into some trouble. If you manage to take Charmander at the start, you are very likely going to run into some well-known difficulty here. Not only are Bulbasaur and Squirtle's grass or water attacks 4 times effective against the rock and ground types here, but poor Charmander is weak to rock and is not very effective against them. You cannot advance the story until you beat Brock, so if you did take Charmander, you are essentially forced here to really grind up your levels on your team, or rely on a stronger Nidoran, for example, to level 12, learning the fighting type move Double Kick, which is strong against rock types. Because of this, Charmander is considered to be hard mode, but if this is your first time playing, you will have no clue this is the case. Taking Bulbasaur is considered easy mode because of it being strong against the first 2 gyms, and taking Squirtle is normal mode. These aren't written in stone or anything and are basically fan-declared difficulty levels. After defeating Brock, you are given your first gym badge, the Boulder Badge, as well as a TM gift, TM34 Bide. TM stands for Technical Machine and is a move that you can download into the Pokemon's moveset. The TM for Bide is a one-time move you can teach to Pokemon who are able to learn it, which has your Pokemon absorb hits for a couple turns and then doubles the damage dealt back to the attacking Pokemon. The gift of a TM after defeating a gym leader is a trend that continues on to this day. You are now able to travel east to Route 3, which has the new encounter of the normal type pink balloon Pokemon, a Jigglypuff, another well-known fan favorite. After Route 3 is the first real important area in regards to the story. Mount Moon is a bit of a maze of a cave with lots of trainers and 4 brand new Pokemon available to catch. A Zubat, the poison flying type purple bat with no eyes, a Geodude, which was seen in the fight against Brock, but if you find that you wanted to use a Geodude for yourself, now is your chance to catch one. Also the bug grass type Paras, quick shout out to my Shroom Boy, and the normal type cute Clefairy, Mount Moon's rare encounter. Also in Mount Moon is your introduction to Team Rocket, the evil gang of bros in all black carrying whips that are hell-bent on using Pokemon for evil, and unfortunately probably abusing their Pokemon. Team Rocket is the absolute worst, and you want to stop their nefarious behavior. How do you go about doing so? Well, by using violence, of course. Knock out their poor abused Pokemon through the use of abuse. Problem solved, and the Rocket Grunts just kinda give up if they lose a battle. Toward the very end, you find a super nerd trainer who claims he found 2 fossils. After defeating him, he gives you the choice of a Helix or a Dome fossil. These don't come into play until way late in the game, but can be resurrected into 2 rock water type Pokemon, Omanite or Kabuto. Leaving Mount Moon is Route 4, where alongside Rattata and Spearow, the first different Pokemon appear depending on your version. In the red version, you'll find the purple poison-type snake Pokemon, Ekans. In the blue version is the ground-type pyramid-colored rodent, Sandshrew. Fun fact here, and contrary to the entire brand of my channel, my favorite Pokemon of all time is actually Sandshrew. Not downplaying my Shroom Boys, of course, as Parasect has quickly become my second favorite, don't get me wrong, but the Sandshrew Sandslash evolution here is where it's at for me. Beyond Route 4 is the final place I'll be discussing here, Cerulean City. There is still some exploring to do to the north, including a second fight against your rival, but this is where the second gym leader resides, the water-type leader, Misty. Misty has two Pokemon, the pure water-type Staryu, an orange starfish Pokemon with a red gem in its center, and her main one is actually its evolved version, Starmie, the purple water psychic type. Defeating Misty grants you the Cascade Badge as well as the TM11 Bubble Beam, a strong water-type attack that you may or may not have just seen Starmie using. And that is basically it for the introduction to this game. There are 6 more gyms to find and conquer, more story elements, more Pokemon to catch, and plenty more decisions to make. I'm sure every Pokemon fan out there remembers their first experience with whatever game they first played fairly well. My first exposure to the series was in fact Pokemon Blue. It was either late 1998 or early 1999, so I was 12 or 13, and I went to spend the night at my friend Shane's house for a typical evening of video games, television, and the like. Shane showed me that he recently obtained 2 new video games of Pokemon Red and Blue versions, as he was hyped to play them from an ad he saw, probably in Nintendo Power. I had never heard of Pokemon, but as he was explaining the basis of the game, it did sound pretty fun to me. He loaned me his copy of Pokemon Blue with the giant turtle on the cover, and I went home and began my journey. My very first Pokemon ended up being Bulbasaur. I remember getting instantly hooked. I definitely don't remember who was on the rest of my team, but one vivid memory I do have was having a Butterfree, thinking it was one of the best in the game. Shane later told me that I probably will not end up using Butterfree in the late game because there are much better options, but I thought Sleep Powder and Confusion was an unstoppable combo. I don't recall as to how long I actually used Butterfree on my original team though. I absolutely loved the game, and my Poke fandom began right on that day I was introduced to it. It would be soon after where I was then introduced to the trading card game, also by Shane, and my childhood obsession began. All of my main friends got so into the game and cards. I had a book of Pokemon drawings, so many restarts on Pokemon Blue, making different and better teams. I started trying to scrounge up money from returning cans or asking my parents for money to buy Pokemon card packs and decks. I started getting up at 6 a.m. before school to watch the anime, and it was truly an awesome time. Pokemania was underway very fast, and I'm glad I was there at the beginning. Because I was given the blue version to borrow, my favorite Pokemon at the time quickly became Blastoise, even though I first took Bulbasaur, and I was not a fan of Charizard like most kids were. To this day, I still own the very same cartridge that Shane let me borrow, as he ended up trading it to me years later. Even now, 22 or so years later, I can still have fun playing through the simple, primitive OG of the series, with all of its glorious flaws. It's clear to say that Pokemon Red and Blue was a monster success. They may not be the best or the most beloved games in the series, but it's what kicked off the entire phenomenon. In late 1998 and 1999, Pokemon was everywhere in North America. Due to how successful it was in Japan, late 1998 saw the triple threat of the Red and Blue versions on the Game Boy, the anime on Kids WB, and the trading card game. All 3 of these were massively popular, and it's like one fed off of the other. Not into video games or cartoons? Then collect the cards. Don't have money for cards or video games? Then watch it on TV. It was hard to escape Pokemania back then, and I dove in full force into all 3. And I didn't even know this, but in North America, the anime is actually what came first by 20 days. The first episode, Pokemon I Choose You, first aired on September 8th, 1998, and Red and Blue were released on September 28th, 1998. The trading cards saw their Western release in December of 1998. But I'm glad I got to experience Pokemon as a child during its initial hype. In fact, I even felt like I was a little old for it, being 13 and all. I remember being in 8th grade during music class once, trying to work out some card trades with a fellow classmate and getting called out by the teacher for not paying attention. I actually felt a little embarrassed because everyone saw it was over Pokemon cards. Looking back now, that's pretty funny. But I do think the massive popularity of the anime and cards play into the success of the games as well. If it were only the video games that existed, it would be a completely different story now. The reception to Red and Blue tends to hover around an average of a solid B grade. They are the second best-selling Game Boy games of all time at an absolutely massive over 31 million sold, second only to Tetris. They certainly aren't without flaws either, as they contain some of the most well-known glitches in video games, and are even broken in some cases. The balance is extremely skewed, as the Psychic type can overpower just about anything in the game. The attack focus energy is supposed to enhance the chance of a Pokemon getting a critical hit, when in fact it lessens the chance. And of course, the existence of Missing No, which is a literal glitch in the game that you can encounter after doing a few simple steps. The graphics of certain Pokemon simply do not match what they will later look like and are honestly pretty ugly in most cases. But it's the charm of the game. It's like a season 1 of a TV show that hasn't worked out the kinks yet. And let's be honest, probably the same for the series. The games eventually get more polished, and hopefully so will my episodes. Oh yes, the bonus segment that only 4 of us will care about. I'm going to tell you where Parasect is in each of these games. Why? I don't know, for fun? I'm Paraspectre, just let me do this. So where is Parasect in Pokemon Red and Blue? Parasect can be found in the Safari Zone in 2 of the areas at level 25 or 30. It is also in the Cerulean Cave, which can be accessed in the post-game at a mighty level 52. It also evolves from Paras at level 24, who was found early at Mount Moon. Heck yeah. And as this is the very first introduction to Parasect in the series, this will be the only time I will also introduce it. Parasect is a bug grass type Pokemon that evolves from a Paras. It is an orange insect that has been overtaken by a red and yellow mushroom on its back. Honestly, it's pretty creepy and tragic if you think about it. The Pokemon is the parasite that has completely taken over its original Paras body, and with its solid white eyes, it's sort of like it no longer has any memory of its former self and is in a constant trance, almost like a zombie. Mechanically, it is not known for being one of the stronger Pokemon in the game, as it's very slow, is 4 times weak to both flying and fire, and 2 times weak to poison, rock, bug, and ice. Its signature move, however, is Spore, which is a 100% accurate grass move that causes sleep. Sleep in Red and Blue is very effective, as the Pokemon could potentially stay asleep for many turns in a row, allowing Parasect to get multiple attacks in. So as I stated before, why Parasect if my favorite Pokemon is Sandshrew? Well, I've always been a fan of Parasect, as I like how creepy it really is. It's normally not anybody's favorite, so it's a Gen 1 underdog. When I made my channel, I decided I wanted the name to be a hybrid of something James Bond and Pokemon related, as they are 2 franchises that I'm a long-term fan of. I had a few written down, like Dr. Noctowl, combining Dr. No and Noctowl, but that didn't work out for me. But one option was combining Parasect and Spectre into Paraspectre, and I ultimately went with that, as Parasect deserves more recognition, and I feel like I've helped in doing so. Parasect for the win. So that's about it for episode 1. Again, I have at least 65 more of these to go, which will constantly be adding more with future releases, so I hope this was a fun, nostalgic look. And hey, maybe there will be some upcoming games that you know nothing about. I know there will be plenty that I will be learning about myself. Pokemon Red and Blue are the only ones released in 1998, so episodes 2, 3, and 4 will all be centered around 1999. Like always, thank you so much for checking out my channel and hopefully subscribing. My glorious supporters on Patreon are shown here, and if you wish to become one yourself, the link will be down below. No pressure, but it's all very much appreciated to help out my channel. There's also the usual store on Bonfire for Paraspectre shirts, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter at Paraspectre. This series is not the only thing I will be doing, as more trading card game challenges will be sprinkled on along the way. Stay tuned for more of those and more of these. Paraspectre will return for Pokemon Pinball.